of different ways. These attack patterns actually exist at multiple levels of abstraction as well. So you'll see that the first one we've talked about here is the highest level abstraction, which is API manipulation via man in the middle. So given these sorts of application framework communications, it's very easy to do a man in the middle interposition attack and manipulate the API traffic that's going between the application and the framework, or the client and the framework. That sort of high-level abstraction can get instantiated in several different ways. So you can use that same API manipulation to do content spoofing, creating stuff on the fly. You can capture stuff in transit, modify it, modify the integrity of it, or you can actually do replay attacks for this sort of messaging as well, which usually is for things like in-game cheating and things like that in the communications. So Tom's going to talk just a little bit right here about content spoofing, and then we'll go after that, and we'll go with a few more patterns that are a little bit deeper, and he'll talk about some of those as well.
So given that you have the ability to basically create content from the ground up, and we'll show you which API elements that you can use to do that, you can actually put something on someone's page that is completely custom. So you could create what looks like a new game or a new type of quiz, and it would have a button, and it would have a link to, as you can see, this says, one of your friends thinks you're sexy, find out who, and there's a click allow button. Now, this sort of thing could be linked to any number of different attacks. You could link it to, any kind of exploit or malware or any kind of malicious website, and go from there. Here's an example of just completely spoofed content that was sent out there. I put the ass of fire in circulation for a while because lonely hearts are burning up in Yoville, and you can see the button collect the ass of fire. If some of this is hard to see, we'll make the slides available for download at some point, and I'll give you a URL. Now, the important thing to note is that each element within this construct actually has a different API area where you can populate it. So here, if you sort of map it, you can see actor, and then each of these. Sort of media source href is basically the link to the image that you want to put there. Then you can see that any sort of title like, ooh, the ass of fire would be in template data name. And then the template data name has an href that can be manipulated. Now, also important are the action links, so that when you go to collect the ass of fire, you could go somewhere else. And then, of course, take the user to wherever you want them to go. So with that mechanic in place, and can be exploited with something like a man-in-the-middle proxy, you can actually begin spoofing any kind of content you want and playing merry hell with people. Ultimately, content spoofing rests on the attacker's ability to modify message content or make API calls directly to create arbitrary content within cross-application messages. Of course, and the impact can be anywhere from phishing, which is a special type of phishing in this case that we'll talk about, enables any kind of social engineering, user harassment, things of this nature. Now, this is, of course, a case of cyberbullying. It's an example of sending someone you don't want, say, a burning cross. Now, notice that I didn't change all of the underlying elements. You can see where this was actually a global element that would have populated my wall for mystery keys. But I've just taken out all of the elements, but I left the mystery keys in there so you could see portions of that API that were and weren't used. Now, here's what it looks like from a proxy view, okay? And then we'll go ahead and break this out. But this is basically the sum total of complexity that you're dealing with. So you can see that it's not incredibly hard. Each of these are the Facebook API elements that you can focus in on when, say, performing content spoofing. The template data href link, the template data media href link, all of these things can point to other things. You can specify the image with the media source. Now, what's important is the action link as well, such if you go to claim it, then that can take you someplace else. Some of these you can leave unaltered, so that if you're trying to create a special scenario where if they only click to claim it, it takes them to someplace bad, then that's fine. That way they might not know it's illegitimate just by clicking any other links. In these cases, here is an attack execution flow that basically summarizes what was going on. And Chris talked a little bit about this. But basically, if you're starting from, say, modifying the underlying request that you found a set of keys, or you found a cat in the hat for your apartment or for your avatar, then your client side will let what we're calling Appville know, hey, I found this item. Then Appville will respond, okay, this is great. What we need you to do now is to respond to the framework app and tell them that you found this so that it can publish to its own specific feeds. And then you get a stream publishing request to the framework, and it goes wherever its destination is. And we'll talk about where the different types and touch points that you can attack. And then finally, of course, the message is delivered, and your attack is resident. Now, in a generic sense, given that we're talking about any kind of application framework where you have a master or framework application controlling the sub-applications, and there's communication both within the sub-applications and the master, you can have things like invitations, some types of notifications, hey, X event has happened, these things can be tampered with. There can be user or group-specific news feeds, which you would publish through the stream protocol. Individual messages. Now, what would this be? This would be a gift. This would be me sending you a gift, something like Jeffrey Dahmer snack tray, or if I were just trying to harass you. Or it could be something less obvious and more insidious. And then there could be some types of global alerts that go on, and all these things you could tamper with as long as the client is bearing the strength of the trust in that relationship. Now, we're going to talk about several attack patterns. Sean, do you want to speak to any of these? Okay. Basically, we're going to talk about navigation remapping and button hijacking as two of the big ones. And in a CAPEC sense, what you'll find is that exploit injection via API message manipulation and malware propagation are basically going to be hierarchically related to these. But so it really 7 and 8 are different types of impacts that you can pull or pivot off of 5 or 6. And we're going to give you some examples of those. Now, when you're talking about navigation remapping, here we're thinking of, let's say, hyperlinks, and this is where you're just simply changing link destinations. It can result in any of the things we've talked about. Now, I'll show you just a simple example, a short movie of just, this is really sort of just a humorous thing, where, okay. Yeah, I gotcha. It's all right. Now, the user clicks on a Man of the Year award. I know this is hard to see, but we can make these available. And then you have Rick Astley coming right off. So we know it's a bit overplayed, but it just gives you a sense that going directly from content that looks authorized with on your page in Facebook, that you can get to somewhere you don't really want to be. This is all of the different API elements that were used in that. Some of them weren't renamed, but all of them, these are the very specific ones that allow you to conduct that type of attack. This is what the attack execution flow looks like. You have an event. Basically, the game application tells you how to respond. You modify it, send it back, and then you can get your malware or your link, whatever it is you're trying to do. All right, now with button hijacking, it's the same situation, except basically the destinations are masked, and you don't really know what you're clicking on when you're clicking on it. And one of the interesting things is that there is, for example, a lot of demand for, let's say, a cute puppy, and it really warms you in your heart to be able to click and save a cute puppy, and no one really expects the fact that by doing that they could actually be getting malware on their system or getting hit by a PDF exploit or something. I've highlighted within the Parastump just some of the areas. Notice where it says label except. This just shows you where it would populate the button content. If you it would create a button that would say accept Jeffrey Dahmer snack tray. Okay, so you're actually populating what the button contains, but you won't be able to see where it leads. So Now, in terms of malware propagation through API messages, this is a little more detailed attack execution flow of what we're talking about. You have first some level of authentication that's going between the user and Appville, and then, of course, you have an application event, and then the application event response that you're modifying. And then you're making a stream publish request. This publish request goes directly to Facebook. Facebook will respond to you and say, hey, it was successful, and then it will put this to wherever the destination is that it belongs, either on the user's wall or as a message to the user and whatnot. Now, here's what it would look like, and I was just going to show a few slides, and then we'll show you a movie. Here, Jerry Mathers has updated his pad. And the idea here is that all of his friends may want to come and check out what he's done. Now, this situation can be quite different if what's being offered is some rare item that's time sensitive and that the number of clicks determines what the lifespan of how long it takes you to claim that item. So things can get used up really quickly. So you can actually have a feeding frenzy going on for people wanting to get into these clicks. So that's why we say it's an amplification attack. Now, has anyone ever, this is basically this type of warning. You can't see it, but it has broken English in it, and it's actually a piece of malware that's been drifting around for quite a while. They've made several refinements on it, but this is just one example of as soon as you click the link to go see the pad, then what you get is an update. You've triggered the malware at that point. So this masquerades itself as an antivirus. What's actually going on is it's using jQuery and Ajax, and it's dynamically updating this page so it looks like what you're looking at is a view in Windows Explorer of yourself getting a virus scan. And then at the end it'll offer you to download it. What's important in this case was that they had modified the malware where no matter what you do, unless you just do a hard reboot, you're going to get infected because it doesn't require you to download anything or any assent. All of this is just a sidebar to the actual attack that's going on in the background. So actually, let me back up and show you a quick movie. So once again, Jerry's updating his pad, and you'll see very quickly that the malware will start hitting him. Pow, okay, there's a warning that comes up. No matter what you do, now he's involved. And going on in the background here is it's downloading possibly through some method of like Java Network Load Protocol or some. It fetches malware that you really have no control over seeing. So you never really know what happens. If you've closed it out, you don't even think that you've been hit. Sean?
Tom just talked really, really fast and got way ahead of where he was supposed to be. So one of the cool things about DEFCON is kind of the unique mix of people we have here. So at the con and probably in the room, we got everything from black hat hackers, malware authors, botnet operators, leets, lamers, posers, scene horrors, security researchers, vendors, but we also have some of the corporate security types, the people that actually have to build and deploy and operate this kind of software, and they're worried about doing it in a secure fashion. So our goals for speaking here today was really to kind of raise awareness of how kind of fragile some of these application framework communication mechanisms are, especially within a social networking context. Some of the unique things that those bring to the game, and because of the fast nature of this stuff growing, because of the fast nature of how many users are out there, because of some of the unique scalability issues, many times these sorts of things are being deployed and maybe not with as deep a proactive security thought as could be there. So one of the things we want to do is try and kind of introduce and raise some awareness for those out there who are having to build apps against these sort of frameworks or who are building these frameworks, some of the things they want to think about from a mitigation perspective and some of the resources that might be available. So really, if you're going to build secure software, if you're going to build software that's resilient, resistant, tolerant to attack, the first and absolute fundamental thing you have to do is understand how it's going to be attacked. If you don't understand what the attacker, how they're viewing it, what kind of techniques and things they're going to do, there's no way you can possibly build it to be secure. And unfortunately, a broad understanding of that kind of knowledge of the attacker's perspective really resides in a fairly small number of people's heads. This is not broadly known stuff that's out there. And truly, most of those people in the world are here this weekend. So if you look around, you might recognize them. Well, unfortunately, when we all leave, whether it's today, tomorrow, whenever you're going back home, you spread out, we're still greatly outnumbered by the people who are trying to build software. And so there's only so much of our brains that can go around to help them understand